same root, at the same root as chaver is chevra, society, because it's like a collective friendship. It's like a collective friendship. So I want to examine specifically what benefits do I have from developing good chavirim, good friends, right? Developing good relationships, good acquaintances, having friends, the positive benefits that I could glean for that personally. Additionally, the potential deleterious effects of bad friends. Means not only can I be positively influenced if I have good friends, I can be negatively, unfortunately, I can be negatively impacted if I have bad friends. And that's on an individual basis. But additionally, on a communal or a societal basis, if I'm surrounded by a good group of people who are trying to grow, who are trying to improve, who are basically good people, and they exude good influences on me, that's going to help me also become a better person. While conversely, if I'm surrounded by a negative, if I'm getting negative vibes or influences from my society, that's going to negatively impact me as well.
So is a negative person a friend? I think the friendship has to do with being honest. We talked more about being able to express negativity from a position of wanting to point things out to our friend that could help them in the long run, not to be hurtful.
Yeah. So I'm throwing a little caveat into that, because last week, from what I understand, my brother Rabbi Wolbe said that part of the benefits of having a friendship or having a friend, a good friend, is that they could help you. And they can see your shortcomings, your flaws, and they'll point it out to you. Because a real friend, a true friend, cares so much, cares genuinely about their friend, and they're willing to point out or give constructive criticism to help that person deal with or come to terms with, try to rectify their flaw. What I'm throwing in a caveat into this. I'm saying not all friends are a good thing to have. There are some friends that maybe you should avoid. Because just like chaver, chibur, a friend, a connection, can be good for you if you connect. That's dependent on what you're connecting to. If you're connecting, if you have a chibur, if you have a relationship with someone that's a bad influence on you, then it'll affect you negatively as well.
So what is the definition of friend? Is it a positive or a negative?
That's the whole point. It could be either one. Chaver means chibur. It's a connection. That's the whole point. You can have a good friend, but that good friend could be bad influence.
What's chibur mean?
Chibur means connection, and chaver means friend.
What?
No, it's spelled the same way because it's the same root.
So if you have
Chibur is what now?
Chibur is a connection. So just like we know that the Hebrew words, the way they're spelled, is not a coincidence. The way we spell it, we arbitrarily decide what a word means. Rather, we say. Because it's the Lashon HaKodesh, it's quote unquote God's language, the word underscores the root of the idea. Like, for example, anyone knows the Hebrew word for a dog?
For what?
Kelev, a dog.
Kelev.
A dog. Sorry, I'm from dog. D-A-W-G, right. So the Hebrew word for dog is a kelev, which is kilev, which means like a heart. Because dogs are just awesome, and
Yes, they are.
Yeah, they're like they just give love. It's like a heart, just overflowing with love, and they're just dogs are machines of giving love. That's what they are. The Hebrew word for a word. This is a great illustration of this idea. Yeah, what's the Hebrew word for a word? The Hebrew word for a word is the same word as the Hebrew word for a thing.
For what?
For a thing.
Devar.
Davar means a thing, but davar also means a word, because the thing and the word is the same thing. Does that make any sense? So we're talking about friendship. We're talking about chaver. The idea behind a chaver is a chibur, and I'm saying, I'm throwing a wrench into what my brother spoke about last week. I'm saying that it's not always a good thing to have a chibur with someone. It may indeed be a bad thing. Indeed, it could be a positive thing. And
you also mentioned community, and I kind of thinking all the
and
time
chevra,
on the
like we
radio.
said,
On the radio, though, there many times when there have been corporations that were doing the wrong thing, and they were talking about the corporate culture. then that would be the community at work. And if the community at work is urging you to be dishonest so as to provoke the benefits of the corporation, then that would
Well,
be
that
a
would be
negative,
if you believe that the culture of the corporation is a bad one, that would be an example of
a community
negative
pushes you in the
affecting you.
direction of dishonesty.
Negatively, yeah. But I think that the counterculture of the '60s was an idea where when I get into this more specific, we're going to broaden the idea, but that's another example of where the traditional family structure was just shot out of the sky. The 50s and the 60s were totally different decades, but that's not necessarily because of a bunch of people independently deciding that we're changing course, but rather society as a whole influencing the individuals. What I mean is that these things don't happen in a vacuum, right? Societal changes don't happen in a vacuum. They're a result of the society.
I can't help thinking that to you this is ancient history, and I remember it.
Yeah, it is to me.
But societies gain strength from being a society, and they lose the perspective of the individual.
That can happen, indeed. I want to talk about that also. So like I said, today's goal is to examine, is to explore the idea of a chaver and a chevra. Chaver is a friend or a chibur, and a chevra is a society or a community. What are the positive aspects? How do we get more of the positive aspects? How do we get influenced positively by friends and by society? And conversely, how do we avoid the potential pitfalls, the potential negative effects of society and friends when I have a chaver or a chevra that give me negative influences and cause my situation to be negatively impacted by my friends and my society. Okay, so let's start with the positive. Let's think together. Let's crowdsource this. How can I benefit? Not materially, but how can my character be improved by my friends? Let's start with the individual basis.
The role model aspect.
Role model aspect, okay.
And if your friend is someone who is perhaps better than you in some ways, they inspire you to do that.
Boom. So if you have a friend, if you're connected to someone who is, let's say, better than you, so you'll up your game. I like to use this the example of let's say athletes. This is an idea I just thought of on the way here. You have athletes that they play to the competition. And if someone did the 4-minute mile, suddenly everyone can do the 4-minute mile. Why? Because the second you see that it can be done, so you push yourself harder and you get there. And if someone does a 3.5 miles, people will start doing it as well. Not because they're any more gifted, maybe because they take more performance-enhancing drugs, but let's keep that on the side burner. But not necessarily because they're more gifted, but rather because they push themselves harder. And if I see someone who does this, and we have the verse in, I believe it's in Proverbs, Kinas sofrim tarba chachma. The envy of the scribes will increase wisdom. It means if I see my friend composing or writing or developing wisdom, that's going to push me, inspire me, spur me to maximize my own potential.
You're also saying that we shouldn't aspire to be like people who are like ourselves but better than ourselves.
Well, I'm saying, but the second we have exposure to people that are better than ourselves, then we're going to push ourselves to be like them and up our game. Another Mishnah, the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, Chapters of the Father, says you should always rather be a tail to the lions than a head to the foxes, right? What that means is you'd rather be the worst player in the major leagues than the best player in AAA. Right? You'd rather be the worst player in the majors than the best player in AAA. But when you're in AAA, everyone looks at you. You're the king. You win the MVPs. You have the best statistics. You're the king. Still, I think that maybe Laurie's idea is the reason why. Laurie's saying is that when I surround myself with people that are better than me, I myself will improve more than if I'm the best of the people that of the competition, so to speak, or the society. I like that. What else? So we have the Talmud says, Harbe Torah lamati merabotai. I learned a lot of Torah. This is one of the rabbis saying the statement. I learned lots and lots and lots of Torah from my rabbis. Umechaverai yoter mehem. But from my colleagues, from my contemporaries, from my peers, my friends, mechaverai, chaver, from my friends, I learned more than I learned from the rabbis.
And most of all
from my students, right? But we're not talking about students now. Yeah, the students you learn from even more. Means normally you would think the opposite would be true. You teach to students, you study from rabbis, and you converse, so you're a par with your friends. And here the opposite is true, where your students who are the people that you're teaching to, they teach you more. But the friends, the peers, those they teach you more than your teachers. So that might be Laurie's idea as well, where when I bounce ideas off my friends, when my surrounding, my community influences me more than the intellectual messages, vibes that I get from my teachers. What that means is that, let's say kids. Okay, kids learn more from society than they do from what they're taught. They learn more, let's say, kids will behave more like what they see other people behaving than what they're taught to behave like. Does that make any sense? I think it does. Say it again. Kids will learn, will be influenced more by what they see than what they're taught. And what they see their friends do, they're going to do it. As opposed to what they're instructed on an intellectual level, that is not so. That doesn't have that great of an impression on a child. So this is creating a brand new playground for how we learn things. We learn things more from society than we do from instruction. That's an incredible idea. Thank you, Laurie. And I think there's another aspect of advice, and like we had here last week, that if you have a good friend, they're going to share advice with you. They're going to help you. A real friend doesn't shy away from telling their friend the area that they think they need help with. They need to be shown the right path. They need to be corrected. And that's a tremendous benefit, that if you have a good friend, someone is looking out for your benefit, someone is looking out for you to try to make, to improve you, a real, genuine friend would not hesitate to point out, obviously, in a respectful and nice manner, not in a disparaging manner, but to help you improve. That's what friends are here for. Okay, so that's on an individual level. On an individual level, we see the idea of society having, or our friends having a tremendous impact on us and how we act and how we learn and how we could improve. And obviously the converse would be true, like it says, once again, going back to Pirkei Avot, one of the worst things that we could have is a chaver ra, is a bad friend. Someone who gives us, who has that connection, but it has a negative effect on us. Our sages say, oy l'rasha, oy l'shchenai. What that means is, woe to a wicked person, and woe unto his neighbor. Because if you're neighbors, if you're friends with the wicked person, you'll be negatively impacted as well. Okay, so that's on an individual level. What about on a societal and communal level? So I have here a fascinating story from, this is all the way at the end of Pirkei Avot, of the chapters of the Fathers, a little-known story, which I think is just mind-boggling. So there's a story here, and I'll say it in English. So Rebbe Yossi, the son of Kisma, he said as follows. One time I was walking on the path, and I met someone, and he said hi to me, and I said hi back to him. And he said to me, tell me, Rabbi, where do you live? So, Amartilo, I said to him, in a very large city, replete with scribes and scholars. I live in a city of scribes and scholars. So he said to me, Rabbi, maybe you should come live with us. Maybe move to our city. Come live with us. And I'll give you Elef Alafim, 1,000,000 dinars of gold. And many precious stones and diamonds. He's trying to recruit this awesome rabbi to move to his city. So I said to him, this is the rabbi talking, what did I say to him? Im atanosinli, if you give me all the gold and silver and all the diamonds and precious gems in the world, I'm only going to live in a place, in a city of Torah. Why? Because when someone dies, the only thing that he brings with him is not silver, and not gold, and not diamonds, and not precious stones. Only Torah and good deeds. That's it. As it says, and he brings the verse in Proverbs, that the Torah watches over you when you're in this world, and when you die, and in the next world. That's the statement. So you have the rabbi, he meets this fellow. The fellow tries to convince him to move to his city, to recruit him to move to his city. He says, no way, I'm not moving to your city. You can give me all the money in the world. You can give me all the money in the world, and I'm only living in a place where there's Torah, where there's scholars and scribes. Why? Because when I die, the only thing that I bring with me is my Torah and my good deeds. Nothing else. All that gold and silver that you want to give me, can't bring it with me. Now there's a fatal flaw in this story. Who could figure out what the problem with the story is?
Well, he's not teaching.
Huh?
He's not going to this place to teach and inspire.
Who, this,
The
the
yeah,
rabbi?
Yeah, the rabbi. He won't go to this place, so he's not moving away from his. He's being kind of selfish.
I mean, what you're saying that he's being selfish? Okay. I like that. Okay. So he's being selfish. You should say, okay, I should give up my own personal growth for going to inspire. Okay, maybe that's that. But I think there's a fundamental problem with the story.
He's being used.
Who's being used?
The rabbi is being used and being bribed to come there to give up.
Well, he was trying to be bribed, or let's call it recruited.
Okay. To increase standing in that community or
Do
that
we
individual.
know there's not anybody of scribes and scholars in the other city?
Huh?
Do we
Oh, maybe you don't know. Well, what are those things? What are those? The recruiters for colleges that get student athletes. What are they called?
Scouts.
Not scouts. Come on,
I don't know.
not recruiters. There's a word for them.
Oh,
That they like give
Thieves?
money, like under the.
really?
Ganives.
No, come on. What's?
Is there such a word?
Oh, there is a word for it.
Boosters? What is it?
Huh?
Boosters?
Boosters.
Really?
He had some booster. The city had a booster. Thank you, Johnny. The city of Booster is sending trying to recruit the rabbi to come to the city.
Psychic.
Booster. Thank you. That's the word. Thanks for the vindication
I
there.
haven't heard that word before.
I haven't either.
No? Okay. So, I think the problem with this story, Lenny, what were you going to say?
If he were to say, we're going to give you a community that's very involved and would like to learn Torah, and we also have a nice bonus for you too,
Mm-hmm.
that would be different.
I mean, the guy's sales pitch was like, I'll give you all the money in the world.
That's
And
right.
he had bad sales
That
pitch.
wouldn't be a place that you want to go to. You know, unless you.
The thing that I find startling with the story, the rabbi says, no, I don't want your offer. But why does he not want your offer? He starts invoking, when you die, the only thing you're going to bring with you is your Torah, but your money is useless. That's what he said to him. It seems like what he's saying, that I'm rejecting coming to your city because your city doesn't have Torah scholars. And therefore, if I come to your city, I'll have lots of money, but I won't have any Torah, I won't have any good deeds. What he's saying is, okay, fine, so why don't you study Torah? Why don't you do good deeds and have the money also? So you'll have the money in this world, and when you die, you can't bring the money with you, but you'll have the Torah as well. What he's saying is that if I leave my city of scholars and scribes, if I leave my society, my community that's conducive for growth, and I come to your city, I won't have growth. I won't have that Torah and good deeds to bring with me when I die.
And that's wrong.
Well,
No.
Instead of him being the one that comes to the city and teaches it and gets a following, I mean, could that be the fault in it? I mean,
No, I think.
It's kind of like torch rabbis coming to Houston.
don't tell him that. We don't want him to leave.
Well, that's how they pulled me here with all the money, huh?
So,
Is he being haughty?
what's wrong
Well,
with...
no, I think that when we talk about social influence, we think of it as a minor thing. We think of it as something which is, okay, yes, I am who I am. I make my own decisions. I'm an independent person. I'm someone who's, I think for myself. I'm reasonable. I'm rational, and I have lots of influences, and I'm influenced by society as well. What this rabbi is saying is that if I'm in social influence is the number one determining factor. The society is the most important factor that determines whether or not I have Torah, and I have good deeds, and I have something to bring with me when I die, or not. I mean, this rabbi was indeed already probably accomplished. Otherwise, why would they invest so much? Why would boosters come after him?
But
He obviously was already accomplished, but he was saying, not only would I lose would I not be able to gain to have more, I'm even going to lose what I have because I'm surrounded by a society, by a bad society. It means there's one aspect. Maybe you should take one for the team. Maybe he was arrogant. Maybe he was selfish. Maybe he should have said, okay, fine, I'll give up a little bit to try to influence a lot of people. That's one point, okay? But let's put the point on the side. Besides when he's focusing on his own growth, he's saying this idea of being surrounded by good or bad society, i.e., society that is going to help me grow, that is being conducive for me to grow, versus society that gives me negative influences, is the number one most important thing to determine the direction where someone heads.
it doesn't necessarily mean that. He may simply mean that being surrounded by other people that encourage him to grow, he's going to grow more than he possibly could in a situation where he's not surrounded by such people. And every little iota of growth is vitally important to him. It doesn't have to mean that he won't grow at all.
When
That
he cares for himself, he's got to take
we
care of
already
himself.
did that. We already did that. He said, put that aside and consider only how much he can grow. Well, he's bound to grow more if he's totally surrounded by scholars and sages, and than he is in a place where he's got fewer of them. It's not. Doesn't have to be the only influence. It's just that there's going to be more growth in one situation than the other.
I think you gave us the answer before. You said the students are what caused the stretch, the growth. The rabbis teach us what the law is in the explanation, but the growth occurs in the when we take it in and when we play with it. The creativity of the understanding stretches the understanding. So he would have no students. He wouldn't have.
He would have no students. I'm listening. He would have no students.
Well, there are no scribes. There are no the rabbis. So he would have to create a whole community. Where he stays, he can contribute to the process of stretching the understanding.
I think my problem is your point is correct. I think that you can indeed be right, but I think that when he's invoking what happens when I die, what he's trying to say is he's looking at it. He says, yes, money's a good thing, and maybe I might have an influence, but he's saying But he's augmenting the situation by saying, I'm going to die with nothing besides for money.
He didn't say nothing. He just said that it was important, and the implication could be, I want to have as much good deeds in Torah as possible. Not that I'm afraid I'll have none. But if you're right, if he's really saying, I'm afraid I'll have none, then yeah, he's not going to have none. He'll have some.
No legacy?
Might have less than he would have, but he would have some.
Maybe you need to get rid of the fog for us.
Hmm?
Maybe you need to help the fog lift.
What do you mean?
Well, how about giving us the answer?
Yeah.
Did you just give us the answer? Was that
No, I'm trying to. What I'm trying to develop here is
It's not all or nothing.
there's sort of the structure of the idea, and we'll talk about the root of the idea. The structure of the idea, I think, is that society has a great impact. I don't know if it's the only impact. You may be right. May not be able to prove from here that society is the only thing or the most important thing. I can prove that probably later on when I invoke some of the studies that were done about social pressure. We'll get to that, and the psychoanalyst will help us here with that. But what I'm trying to show here is that we can be positively and negatively impacted by our friends, by our society, in a great way. I think I'm going to agree to that, in a great way. And it's a good thing, ostensibly it's a good thing to be positively influenced by our society and by our friends, and it's a bad thing to be negatively influenced by our society and our friends. Everyone agree to that point? Okay, let's...
We become who we associate with. Well, basically, whoever we associate with, we pick up their. I mean, if you associate with people who are good, then you'll more likely pick up their values. If you associate with people who are bad.
Are you invoking the second law of thermodynamics?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so we'll get there. J-train.
So living in the ambivalence is what scholars do. They discuss this, and that's why they keep on discussing it. This is something very ambivalent about each way of doing it.
Well, I'm going to throw another wrench to this, okay? Because I think that there is that this may not always be true. And I think that it's possible for society, a good society, to be a crutch for someone. And or just say, "La'olam yehei yirat shamayim alachet yirat basar v'dam." You should always fear heaven the same way you fear your friends, or the way you fear humans. I'll say that again. You should be as fearful as heaven as you are fearful of your friends. When someone is about to do something wrong, what they do is they turn left and they turn right to see nobody's watching. Or some people do this. And they say, okay, no one's watching. I can do whatever I want to do. But they don't say, oh, is God watching me? They don't think about that. So therefore, I say you should always be as fearful of heaven, be fearful of the Almighty, just like you're as fearful as you are of your friends. I.e., some people fake it for their friends, and their job is to make it real. Some people can be surrounded by a good society, and that society can mask the fact that they're not genuinely growing. You could fake it for your society. You could be surrounded by good people, doing good things. You'll be a good person. You'll be doing good things, but it won't be genuine. It won't be real. Your fear of heaven, so to speak, won't be there. And we know that the way we judge someone is on an individual basis. We remove the societal effect from a person. The Mishnah says that on Rosh Hashanah, on the day of judgment, the day of reckoning, every person is judged like totally individually. Just like if you have a bunch of sheep in like a pen, whatever to put them in, and you want to count the sheep, you open a small hole and you let out each one individually. what the Mishnah. That's the example that the Mishnah gives. So too on Rosh Hashanah, every person is judged individually. The way God views us is not us as a member of society, but as us, the individual. How would you be without the society? Would you still be faking it? Would you still be just going through the motions because everyone else is doing it? Who are you like without the crutch of society? So society indeed may not be a good thing. What's going on, Rabbi? This is crazy. Is society a good thing or a bad thing?
Oh, well, there's three possibilities, really.
Okay.
You're surrounded by good people, and so you don't want to be embarrassed that you do what they're doing. Or you're surrounded by bad people, and then you don't have the gumption, maybe, to speak up or to behave differently than they are. Or you're surrounded by neutral people, in which case it's just as easy to do anything, and so you will keep on doing the right
Yeah, but
thing.
I could be surrounded by good people, and it could positively influence me. I could be in the city full of scribes and scholars, and that's a good thing.
Right.
On the other hand, it could be a bad thing because that just means that I'm faking it
I
for the
acknowledge
crowds.
that.
Huh?
Acknowledge that.
Okay.
Okay.
So is it a good
acknowledge-
thing or a bad thing? So what's society?
So
What's
wait
going
a
on
minute.
here?
There's also the possibility that you're surrounded by neutral people, and you have the integrity to keep on doing the right thing. Or
Or you're not surrounded by, you're all alone.
Or you're all alone. Or you're surrounded by people that are urging you to do the wrong thing, in which case it takes even more integrity to keep on doing the right thing because they're pushing you to do bad things. They say, oh, come on, everybody's doing it. What's the matter with you? You think you're so righteous. You're just bragging about your righteousness. Be a regular person.
But we have a conflict here. That's what I'm trying to point out. The conflict is that when I'm surrounded by identical societies, good societies, how come we have the idea or the concept of society impacting me, and it's a good thing. I will never leave a city that has scribes and scholars. I'll never leave a city that has good influences on me. On the other hand, it could be like a cocoon. It could be a crutch. It could mask. I could just be faking it for the society. I have the fear of man, so to speak, and it's not real. And in Rosh Hashanah, when we're judged it without the effect of society. And society could just mask the problem. It's not necessarily a good thing. It's indeed may even be
Okay, wait.
maybe even be negative. And I'll tell you, my grandfather, when he would talk to his yeshiva students, he would always say this idea. He would say that you're in a yeshiva now. Yeshiva is the best society for growth, but it's not real. We don't know that it's genuine until you take what you have and you bring it to the outside world, and you reach, or you bring it to our culture where the general the people that you meet, they don't necessarily agree to what you believe in, or they don't necessarily live lives that are in sync with yours. And then let's see how you survive. That will determine. That's the real setting of life.
I said that.
Okay. Can I ask?
What do you say,
I was
John?
going to say, what's wrong with, you're saying, so if you're not genuine, you're surrounded by good people, and you're saying that, what do you mean by if it's just as bad faking it? As long as you're doing good for society, who cares of what your intentions are? What do you mean you're saying
It has
that
no
the genuine-
value. It has no value.
What do you mean? I don't understand when you say faking it. What do you mean by faking it? Faking like doing good deeds for another person?
It's think of it as fear of man. When someone is not genuine, so
Right.
you have two people doing identical things. Okay.
Okay.
Think of kindness, right? The example you brought.
Right.
Two people doing the same act of kindness. One of them is doing it genuinely, and one of them is doing it to get recognition, or to not get disapproval, or to just be to not be thought of negatively in their society.
Right.
So one of them is doing a mitzvah in its purest form, and one of them is just faking it for his friends.
Right.
So we see society. We've learned society can have a positive influence, and society can mask our shortcomings. Someone can have an actual shortcoming, and when society is not watching, not be at all a kind person, but when everyone's watching, you can be a kind person.
Okay,
I
because
mean,
the,
and
but the thing
our goal
is-
in Muster, Jonathan, our goal
What?
in Muster is to become better people, to improve ourselves in a real way, not just to live for
But some-
everyone
but
else.
Even if you're the intention, it may not be good initially. Because even in my other class,
Okay.
I'm learning is that whether the doing kindness, whether it's done intentionally, if it's doing for a good motive or not, is it better to give tzedakah, even if you know that if you don't do it begrudgingly. But if you keep on doing it, eventually you're going to end up justifying it to yourself that eventually it's going to be, hey, you know what? This is a good thing, and I'm going to continue doing it.
I like what you're saying. I was going to say that also.
So, you eventually...
What he's saying is
just
like
by
this. Means even if you do it without genuine intentions, eventually it's going to impact who you are. It means your actions are going to
the
affect.
actions, it's the effect.
Love it, love it, love it.
Fake
Fake it till you make it. Love it. I love that.
Exactly. So that's what I was trying to... So what's wrong with that?
It's great. I agree to that point. I was going to say it later on. So
Oh, I apologize.
Don't apologize.
No, I think I'm sorry. I didn't mean to
yeah.
intrude on there.
So I want to talk about social influence versus social pressure. We could be influenced by our society. We could be influenced by our friends. We could be influenced by the people that we're surrounded by. But we could have what's called social pressure, where you don't want to be different. You don't want to be viewed negatively by a certain society, and therefore you do something. You do things that aren't real to you. You don't really necessarily believe in, but you do it to not get rejected. Fear of rejection. The Asch conformity test. If anyone familiar with the Asch conformity test?
Tell us something psychological.
Yes, ASCH. So I think his name was Solomon Asch
Social psychology.
in the
You're a
50s.
psychologist.
But I don't know that one.
Oh yes, you're going to know about it when I tell you
That's
this.
interesting.
I'm a psychotherapist, I'm not a psychologist.
So he took a bunch of college students and he wanted to figure out this exact question: how much are people willing to do? How many bad decisions are people willing to do?
What are you talking about, the painting?
Oh, not the painting. That's another example of it. Yeah, it's a horrible one.
Yeah.
How many bad decisions are people willing to make so as to not go in conflict with their society? And what he did is, the famous example of this study was, he took 7 people in a room and he's telling them he told them that he's giving them he's doing a study on visual effects, right, something like that, visual interpretation of something. And the thing is that 7 people in the room, but only one of them was really being tested. The other 6 were working with him. Other 6 were working with him. They're called Confederates. Confederates. And he showed them, what he showed them is a graph or a picture of 2 lines. One of them was 10 inches, one of them was 12 inches. And he said to them, which one's longer? And the first 6 were all Confederates, and they all said that the one on the left, the one that's only 10 inches, that's the longer one. And invariably, the guy at the end, so as to not be in conflict, to not go against social pressure, would I think 50% of the time would say, oh yeah, the one on the left, just to go with everyone else, even though it was clearly, blatantly obvious that the one on the right was actually longer. Now, after someone if someone were to say, oh, actually the one on the right is longer, then the other 6 Confederates would start ridiculing him and say, isn't it obvious? You really think that the one on the right is longer? The one that's actually 2 inches, significantly longer. And they would convince him, and ultimately 76% of those studied, of those would actually go with what they know is wrong. And he used this to show that people, when they're surrounded by social pressure, would make decisions that they know are obviously wrong, just they don't want to have the pressure of going against the society, going against the grain, even though they know it's right. So 76% of society.
Of the total?
Of the total,
Or
yes.
Of the
Total.
ones that initially said that 12 inches were longer.
No, total.
There's a lot for our legal system, doesn't there?
But that's another good example.
10 angry men.
That's why
12 angry men.
12.
Yes.
Yes. Very good. But think about that. I'm saying, even in something as simple as which line on a graph is longer, and one of them is obviously longer to anyone, people are unwilling to go against what society tells them. How much more so is it difficult to go against society when it's an intellectual argument and you know you're right, or your intellect, your unbiased intellect would tell you one way, but you don't want to go against society, so therefore you'll just go with the flow.
Yeah.
Think of the mob effect. The mob effect is where people, if there's a riot, if there's a mob, so they'll do things as a collective group that they would never do individually, because of the society it's just all, it's in Argentina. We just lost a soccer game. Let's burn cars and have mass riots and destroy this and loot the city, right?
This is why we don't have people joining the military 35 and older, because they think independently.
You think that it helps when you get older?
That's why.
I thought it was just that they lose their physical capability.
They're independent thinkers.
They're independent.
At 18, you can run a herd.
Because they're very vulnerable.
Yeah.
It's very impressionable.
The range,
Interesting.
is it builds, man.
But,
Yeah, but-
you know what? You make a good
Yeah,
point.
but most people don't change their minds about many of their beliefs, many of their convictions from 18 to 35. So that would go fly in the face of your theory.
I'm not sure you're right, but okay.
Think about it. We have 1 billion Christians and 1 billion Muslims in the world. Okay. Now these two religions are mutually exclusive. You can't be both. They can't both be right. Correct?
Right.
Everyone agrees that's true?
True.
Either Jesus is the Lord and Savior, or if you have to accept Muhammad and Allah, or else you're toast. Right? And each one of them has believes that if you're not with us, eternal damnation. Right? Each one of them independently means they can both be right. So there's at least 1 billion people in the world that are wrong. Correct?
Mm-hmm. True.
Now, people who grew up Muslim and grew up in Muslim countries don't necessarily defect and become Christians. And conversely, it doesn't happen that often. So it's just that their society or the circumstances or their family or their surroundings told them one way, and it's such an important decision as to it's so important by the fact that there's eternal damnation on either side, right? There's eternal damnation on either side. It's such an important decision. Almost nobody goes the other way. So, if they're independent thinkers, they should say, "Oh, wait a minute, you got to do the mathematics here." Yes.
I think you have to, when you say that, you have to be careful what culture you're talking about, because in at least the Western world, in adult development literature, they show the stages of adult development, and as someone's approaching the end of their 20s and going into their early 30s is accepted as the time when they most differentiate from their parents' belief and reframe what they're doing and how they're approaching things to take them on for the next stage of their life. So I think a lot of it depends on the culture. And, is that a Western phenomena that we have those options to do that is a valid question. But I think if we think back into most of our lives, mid-20s to early 30s is a time of very, very active questioning. You try a career, you try a lifestyle, and then you re-examine and see if it's still fit, if it's your parents that you continue to respond like in your family, or if you're individuating more.
Well, that may indeed be true. Okay. But why is that true? Because your parents grew up in a different culture than you did. Your parents had a different society than you did. So, no, what I'm saying is that if I'm in my 20s and 30s, right, to late 20s to early 30s, so, and I'm going against what my parents taught me. But who am I going with? Am I going on my own, what I determined with my own intellectual reasoning capabilities to be correct, or to be right, or to be just, or to be rational, right? Or what society at large is going with?
Well, that's just the thing.
So indeed, people may question what their parents said, what their parents taught them, but in the context of society, or the society, that the group of people that they're associated with, also questioning their parents, the parents' convictions, their parents' ideals,
So if
their parents'
a person
beliefs.
is in the army, then he will be surrounded by army people, and he will be influenced by them.
Well, so what I'm trying to say is that it's very rare to find someone that's all alone, that's only making decisions based on what they know and they can prove and they can rationalize and they can intellectually come to terms with to be true.
Well, but people go through a process of finding where their comfort zone and their fit and their sense of productivity and self best go. And historically, especially with prolonged adolescence and people going to graduate school and financially dependent on parents and that type of thing, it takes a while for them to get that, try it out, see what's working for them personally, and then redefine that. And yeah, there are all types of variables in society that affect that, but mainly where people are finding their comfort zone and their fit.
And people try different things. They might hang out with some atheists over here and some shiurim over there, and
Some
they
people do
will
that, but
be
most
influenced by
people don't
both.
do that. I think most people like to stay in their comfort zones. You know, I mean,
But they
we all try
establish
to
a
stay in our
comfort
comfort
zone.
Well, let me
zone.
ask
Is
you-
there anything wrong with staying?
I mean, the comfort zone is influenced by
I,
the surroundings.
well, the question. I think the example of the Christians and the Muslims is a very good example because this is an important decision that a lot of people are making, and it's people are making these decisions based almost entirely on the society.
Yeah, but
And social
what if
pressure.
one of them goes and lives in the other group?
Huh?
What if one of them
So
goes and
that's
is
the rare
isolated?
individual who's willing to totally buck the trend.
No, I'm
That's-
saying if a person happens to wind up surrounded by the other group for whatever reason, not because he chose to do it, but because something happened that his job or something required him to be surrounded by these other people, he might very well decide that they're right. Because they're the ones that are the only influence on him at that point.
Well, that's the point. Is either way, it's social pressure.
Exactly.
Either way, it's social pressure.
So the point of the matter is, okay, so we know the effects of
But
social
you
pressure.
are.
So is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, that's not a good thing. It sometimes it is. It depends. But the thing is, but let me ask you, if you know you're in a situation where, even though you may be influenced by, even though you know that you're surrounded by good things, if it's taking away what you've already felt that you knew is right, even though their intentions may be correct or whatever, or you may feel that their intentions are correct, but you yourself know, have a particular belief system about something, how do you know, how do you stick to your own firm beliefs? How do you stick to without having
Well,
to be
maybe there is room to question. Who said there's no room to question?
It's important to question.
Yeah,
to question?
yeah.
Okay, you
question.
question it, but you question it within the Talmudic reference points instead of from the secular point of view or the Christian point of view.
Okay, so so let's question it. I think that it's important. If you want to be a good Jew, you want to know, why are we right? Can we prove it intellectually? Do we have evidence? How do we know it's true? I think that's a very good exercise for someone. Challenge your faith. What's wrong with that? That's a Jewish idea.
Right.
That's a Jewish idea, and we know that the whole idea of faith, the word faith, you almost don't find it. You almost don't find it in Jewish philosophy, in classical Jewish philosophy. It's always about knowledge,
Right.
because it's not enough to just have faith, because that's what your parents, what your society, what your congregation, what your community told you to be true. If that's so, it's just social pressure. If faith could be a result of social pressure, that may not be a good thing. And that's a very Jewish ideal to always question. How do we know? How do we know we're right?
But it's kind of scary, that too, is that when it comes, for example, in politics, a lot of times people tend to migrate to the party that their parents are often associated with, without realizing why they're doing it. They just do it because, just because that's my parents.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been Democrat. But they don't realize, what does it mean to be Democrat? Well, why do you do that? Oh, because my father.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you see I kind of break in that mold, because even though my parents are strong Republicans, I'm not a Democrat, but I define myself as being independent, because I try to look at both sides, and I try to not get this sway from either.
Both parties have changed since we were kids.
What?
Both parties have changed since we were kids.
Strict policy, not talking about politics. But
Yeah.
I think it's a great example of this point. And I actually had a friend who told me that he was in school in '08,
Uh-huh.
and he said he just felt compelled to vote for Obama because everyone he knew was voting for Obama. I think this year he may have not voted for him. But that's once again without making any political statements or right.
Right.
But that's an example of someone making an important decision, a relatively important decision, based on the society, the pressure, the pressure of the persons that he or she is surrounded by.
You know, all of this is based on this premise that everybody thinks. But the society, I think, functions on a 7th grade, or somebody else may know better than me, 7th to 10th grade level. And a lot of people don't. A lot of people are herd animals. We follow the herd.
That's why Obama's president.
Hey,
Might be, and it might not be.
careful.
Could be. I know. A lot
No.
of people who are very. It's because it's some like my father. He's not like he always tries to analyze everything, understand. Whereas he tries not to be influenced just by appearance or just by tidbits of what's being said. He tries to figure out, okay, well, what else is going on, or where do they not talking about?
I want to ask a question. I know this has taken us down a slightly different
Yeah.
path, but in Spain, okay?
In Spain?
Yeah, when we were being wiped out if we would become
Okay.
Christian or whatever.
Yeah.
Weren't we told by the rabbis that God would want us to convert and live as a Catholic versus choose death? Because death was...
You're talking about the Moranos.
Yeah.
The Moranos. That they.
In the 13th
they-
century, they were going to kill us if we didn't convert. And a lot
Yeah,
of us
but
got
weren't we
killed.
told by the
Way
rabbis
before.
that...
The Inquisition, the Spanish Inquisition,
Yes.
said either you leave, or interesting historical tidbit. When was the final day to get out of Spain?
The-
It was on
Yeah,
Tisha B'Av, 1492.
yeah, but
And
before
the
that,
next day, the very next day, Columbus set sail for the
Right.
New World.
Right.
The very next day, which is means it's sort of like the God's hand in history, where one country gets closed down for you, but another way for the Jews to live as Jews was opened.
But
Or
the Moranos got started 100 years before that, when they threatened us
Yeah, but-
with death if we didn't convert. And then one of the motives for saying that you had to convert or die was because the people who remained loyal Jews were influencing the ones who had supposedly converted to continue to keep kosher and Shabbos and stuff. And they said, we don't want the...
yeah,
Okay.
The rabbis were actually.
do you have a source that we could source that?
No,
I don't know. That's a good
my
question.
rabbi
Okay.
in New York told me that.
I have to
He's an Israelite.
think about that.
Was he a reformer or not?
Write to him and ask him his source.
So
Touch anymore.
So I think you're right. I think what I am trying to say is that we have to think, and even in Judaism, in our beliefs, they have to be based on intellectual reasoning, or else they're not complete. And we know that, like I said, we don't talk about faith. The faith is a Christian word. We talk about belief. We talk about knowledge. So indeed, social pressure is not necessarily the right way to build our foundations, our intellectual foundations. But I want to talk about the positive, what Jonathan mentioned, which is the idea of actually being impacted by our surroundings. And the example that I gave to Jonathan when we learned last week was the second law of thermodynamics. Is anyone wants to give a brief
Yeah, we were talking
explanation
about soup, right?
explanation of what the second law of thermodynamics is?
Yeah, soup.
Ultimately, energy is decreasing, entropy is increasing.
Right. The idea is when you have conflicting energy, like you have the hot and the cold, and they come into conflict, they have exposure to each other, so they're going to reach this point of equilibrium. That'll reach this point of equilibrium. And the idea behind that is that if you're surrounded by good people, that will affect you. And that would affect you in a genuine way, not just in a way of you being pressured by society to act in a good way. Not being pressured by society to act in a good way, rather by being genuinely influenced by your surroundings, and you could genuinely change. If you're surrounded by people who are kind people, you will genuinely become a kinder person the more exposure you have to this good positive society. Chibur chevra, chibur connection of chevra, of society. If I'm connected to the positive society, indeed there may be some social pressure, but there's also the idea of being positively influenced by my exposure to this good society and changing me in a good way, changing me genuinely in a good way. And last point is the idea of what Jonathan brought up, is that even if someone is pressured into making good decisions and to acting in a positive way, that can ultimately change who you are. We have the Chinuch, which is this 13th century rabbi. He talks about this all the time, because he delineates all 613 commandments, and he says the reason behind them. And in many mitzvot, he says that by doing something will cause you to be that thing. It means you may be doing something, you may be acting, going through the motions of kindness, not really having the love of your fellow, really empathizing with your fellow. You don't really have those emotions, which is really the ultimate goal. But by you going through the motions of helping him, of caring for him, of loving him, you'll learn to care and love for that person. And like the word ahava, we know the word ahava, the Hebrew word for ahava is love. And it's similar to the word hav, to give. If you give to someone, if you act in a loving way to someone, you'll love them.
Good.
Why do we love our children so much, even if they may be obnoxious brats? Because we give to our children. We act in a loving manner to our children. We do things that are loving, that are kind to our children. We love them.
Well, they're also a part of us too.
Well, that's also true.
And a manifestation of creation.
If we
Yes.
want to become more willing to give to charity, say, then it's better to give $1 100 times, separate occasions.
Is this
than
the
to
torch?
give
Is this the torch?
$100 once, because then we get in the habit of opening our hands.
Exactly. That's what our sages said. That's from the Talmud. Very good. And it's quoted from the Talmud that it's better to give, if you're giving $100 to charity, it's better to give 100 single dollar bills to torch than to give a single $100. I'm joking. I made that joke. But yeah, that's the point, because it's 100 actions of me doing charity, doing charitable exercises, and
It becomes
each
a part of us.
exercise affects who we are, changes us in a genuine way.
You know, there's the psychological concept of confluence, Gestalt therapy, which is the swallowing whole of an idea, and then acting as if it's our own. And true maturity is when you take these things out, look at them, and make a determination yourself, not based on having been fed it and swallowed it whole. And what you're talking about is literally trying it out. You're saying, no, swallow it whole, give, but then the act of doing causes you to rethink it? I'm not sure.
No, it just becomes part of your nature. Think of it like exercise, right? It's like a muscle. You develop a muscle of kindness, a muscle of love, a muscle of happiness. The more you do think happy thoughts, you become a happier person.
You just develop good habits.
Habits, that's a good word
It's
for
not
it.
a question of swallowing an idea whole. You've already decided this is a good thing to do, but yourself,
No, I
you
don't
don't
know
want
that
to do
but
it.
you're making the assumption you've decided it's a good thing to do. I'm saying, how did you come to determine that it's a good thing to do by just repeating a pattern of behavior? I think it is a good thing to do.
Okay. I think I'm talking about a person who is selfish and doesn't want to give. He knows he ought to. He's already decided that on whatever basis, but he doesn't want to do it. And so it's too hard. I don't have enough money, okay? But I'll just give $1, and I'll give another $1 another time. And after a while, I get in the habit of doing it, and it isn't so hard anymore. But he didn't swallow the idea because somebody told him to. He already decided that on his own, whatever basis. But then he didn't want to do it because it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
So he practices until it gets easier.
You're basically saying that he accepts that at the beginning.
He decided it. He didn't
Okay,
just
but
accept
I'm
it.
saying, what was the process that we go through to make that decision?
I think there may be some
That's what I'm
things. There may be some things that you have to understand before you experience, and some things you have to experience before you understand.
Okay.
Means maybe like faith. It means the idea if I just constantly have faith and have more faith and have more, would that bring me to understand it? Maybe not. Maybe there it has to start from the intellectual side, and then bleed through to the practice.
You're saying Jews don't focus on the idea of faith. They don't take things on faith. They take
Faith
things-
alone.
Faith alone.
So
What they study,
faith
what
has
they
to be
learn,
the
they-
extension of the intellectual understanding. Means, but maybe by kindness or by generosity or by love, the opposite is worse as well.
See, I don't disagree with that. I just am having a hard time making it work. How do you get there? What is
I mean,
the
how do you
lead?
decide that it's a good thing to give?
I'm wondering about how do we go through that process? You know, just by doing something because everybody else does it doesn't teach us. We have to
Okay.
somehow take it out, separate ourselves, and redecide.
Yes, but after doing that, you still might not want
Well,
to do
I agree
it.
with that, but the individuation, we separate ourselves and disagree. First, we grow our hair long, we play loud music, you know, and then we end up coming back to somewhere in the center. We redecide, we rethink, and I'm saying, just because we do good deeds, because we're told, do mitzvah, and take no credit, doesn't mean we understand that. How do we get there? What is it? You know, that's what I'm struggling with
Have you
over
been to
here.
Israel?
I'm not saying it's wrong.
Have you been to Israel? Have you visited Israel?
Not yet.
When you visit Israel, something happens
Yeah.
to you, regardless of your background, where you feel a part of the Jewish religion all of a sudden. And I don't know if that's knowledge or is it in the heart, but it's not shame. Nobody puts you to shame because when you give tzedakah, nobody really knows what you give except the person that's listening. But it comes from your heart, and it's your family. And, I think that this would be a great discussion to talk about in tzedakah.
But, you know, it's kind of interesting, I'm sorry.
Go on.
It's kind of interesting because I still find like the deals, you know, like with tzedakah, you know, like when you're, like, it's kind of a peer thing, you know, like there was this deal with Hadassah that, you know, if you accumulate all your gifts over the past years and you can get, if you can take all those and then you can become like a centennial donor or whatever it is, a centennial, a big founder, a centennial founder. So they're willing to let you accumulate everything that you've paid and then fill in the gap to get to like $25,000 or whatever, so that you can have this recognition. It's a recognition that you're give at that level.
So is it a mitzvah then?
But if you feel that you're giving it. I mean, it's an incentive. It makes you think. It's society, but it also makes you think. You know, I want to give to Israel. I want to support.
But it's a marketing tool.
It's a marketing tool. I know, but it is society as well. It's a society to be in that group of people. But if it encourages you to do something positive, i.e., giving tzedakah, then there's really nothing wrong with it.
If
Society
a person
influence.
wants to get his
I agree.
satisfaction by having the biggest yacht, okay, or whatever like that, and he decides instead to get his satisfaction by getting this award that she just was talking about,
Yeah.
he had the choice. He could have got the yacht satisfaction, but he chose to get the tzedakah satisfaction. So he did make a choice. He could have
But the
gloried
yacht-
in his yacht
the
instead
yacht
of glory.
was for himself.
Even though he's doing it for himself, he chose the more mitzvah-dik selfishness.
But in that model, there is recognition, and there is no recognition with the yacht.
Sure there is. Lots of
Only
people
for-
will admire you for having a big yacht.
But that's their decision. Your decision isn't to display by getting the recognition. of-
But you're getting recognition either way. It's just whose recognition is more valuable to you, or what kind of
No, I
recognition
go
is
to
more
my
valuable.
But that's the
opinion.
question
Talking too much.
we're dealing with, is where does the
You
motivation
need to
come
stop.
from? Is it to society
Takes over the
joining?
class.
See, it's better sure
Hijacked.
that the person
I'd like to
being
talk about
selfish is
bad
being selfish
friends,
in a
'cause
way
I
that
have
helps other
one.
people instead of being selfish in a way that
What a
helps only
tremendous
himself.
No
influence.
doubt, I'm not
They
arguing,
were.
I'm not arguing that at all. In fact, you and I agree with a lot.
Let's see.
But
listening.
the why is what I'm dealing with.
When I was
I'm trying to understand the why.
in elementary school, and it
Like-
was Molly Ellison.
Like I've always
Now, what's
known
next
and
week?
she,
that driving
Oh,
on Shabbat
I
is very
assume that's
good.
because on the
No,
class. I don't know.
only
I'm just
thing in
I'm
the
just
Torah that
substituting.
Specifically, is forbidden to do on Shabbat is to burn something.
anyway, she
But I kept driving anyway because
she was a manipulative person, and I was I
really
didn't understand
hard,
that
just
being
because you
young.
believe in something and have
she-
decided it's right
she would-
to actually do it.
Say all these things to me that
But that again is taking
So,
something
you
that's
know,
not,
it's-
it's just sort of a, this is what you're supposed to do, and making
I
a
don't know.
personal
I can't
decision
remember.
and living
It
by
just
that.
it had a
That's the
profound
point I'm
effect
talking
on my life
What
in a
is
bad way.
Really?
It allows us to go from one to the other. The yacht.
Yeah.
This is all the way back in elementary school.
Yes.
Wow.
She lived one street over.
You know, I'm working, but I'm.
What did you just say? You decided you want a yacht?
She was a manipulative person. I was a very innocent. She came from a very nice family. Both
That was
parents
why
never
we never
yelled.
changed to Shabbat.
You know,
Okay, well,
to shul all the time.
driving on Shabbat, choosing not to drive.
She was not Jewish. She was Christian.
The choice to buy
She
the
had
yacht.
nothing to do with it, but
Well,
she was a
Making a decision
manipulative
for
person.
yourself. You're not going to drive on Shabbat.
I just didn't understand that, you know. I didn't know there could be people like that. I never
Okay, I
met
think
one
we're gonna just
before.
have to.
But how did that negatively impact you?
Well,
Here.
she,
To do something else.
I don't know why I used to go to her with my problems, you know, and why, elementary school.
I'll be
I
honest
don't
with you.
really
I
appreciate you telling me that I'm trying to.
She always
I'm
thought
not,
I needed,
I'm not,
thought I
I'm not,
needed her
I'm not
advice.
saying that you're not doing what you're saying.
Her advice would
I'm
make me
saying my
feel
way of
bad,
understanding
you know,
it,
and,
I'm not getting it. That's all
I
I'm
mean,
saying to you.
like for instance, in high
But
school, I got
I
band
don't
sweetheart.
want you to choose.
You know, went over to her house with some
I
other
want you
girls
to
and spent the
appreciate that
night.
it
She
was
said,
really hard for me. to
well, we
stop
all
driving
voted for you,
on Shabbat, and
but I
didn't
should have
wanna
gotten
do
it.
I
You
know,
know,
I
I should have gotten it. You know,
I didn't want to do
I had a
it.
couple
In
of
no
votes. You know, it was
way
supposed to be
do
my
I
night to
discount-
shine,
And I
you
don't
know.
feel that I'm being
And they
like
had
the
all these
person who chose
negative
to
comments,
selfishly
you know,
buy the
about
yacht.
I think you're
how they should have gotten it, that they were the one
misunderstanding
that
where
got
I'm
it for me,
completely
but that they
I
should have
wasn't-
gotten it.
I wasn't
Really
diminishing the
destroyed,
importance of what you were
you
saying
know,
at
my
all. I was
whole
trying to talk about metaphors.
feeling about
and not
not
about
feeling
you.
good about
Yeah, well, you said.
being
Not
bad
about you at all.
sweetheart.
I think what your choice was.
But they used to make fun of me because they would do things.
I'm trying to, I'm
I'm
still, I'm
saying that,
turning.
I'm
I lived
saying
in a
that
small
choosing
town
not
where
to
there are
drive
no
on
Jews.
Shabbat is a very
Where's that?
unselfish thing, and it's difficult.
Weslaco, Texas.
Oh wow.
It is difficult.
We had a shul in
Really
McAllen
difficult.
and Brownsville.
It's lonely to stay home instead of going to shul.
We used to go to Harlingen all the time, but there was no rabbi there. We switched to McAllen and we got a rabbi.
So it
And
doesn't.
so it's hard being the only Jewish
Brownie
kid
points
beside
are
my
not good anyway.
sister,
You can't go
you know,
around
in that
talking
small
about it.
town.
No,
Because,
we don't.
you know, the Christians were always saying,
I think I'm trying to talk.
Oh,
I'm trying to talk about the process of making the decision.
but
Because
they,
it seemed to me that you're talking about the importance of
you know,
how
they
you
would
make
always
the
say I was
decision
going to
do
hell
this
because I
rather
didn't
than
believe in
that
Jesus.
before you actually
We
do it.
killed
You have
Christ.
nothing to
And
worry
there's a
about.
distinction between deciding that this is the right
But
thing
it
to
was
do
not an
and
easy
actually
job.
doing
Yeah, I'm
it.
saying, I think a lot of people have
And you
like
can decide
friends
it's the
when they're
right thing
young
to do
Yeah.
and still
that
not
have
do it because
that have
it's
just
hard.
bad influences.
You might decide
and-
that you want to give charity, but you want that yacht.
To a point where I
But I
had
see
to go
what
talk
my-
to somebody
I
when I
see
got
what
out of high school. I was so
Really?
mixed up.
Well, I see with my own kids. I see sometimes they're when they act with other kids, they play nicely sometimes, and sometimes they act with other kids and they just misbehave and say not nice things. And that's the same thing. Where
That's all
because
passe.
they have
I was
bad
raised
friends exposed to bad
originally
or bad
conservative,
influences, then they act like that.
Still is acceptable.
Yeah.
And they come home and they say things. Well, where do you get that
And
from?
I never,
And
I
then
never
now
knew
I'm
that there were
out, you know,
manipulative people
Missouri
that were
City's
out
not
to
at
help
Bethel,
others
which is
and not be their friends. And I had to learn what
my
a good friend was. You know, somebody
and conservative and when I was in graduate school, orthodox.